Good afternoon and welcome to the Newark Public Library's 2018 Black History Celebration. My name is Dale Colson. I'm the librarian here at the Newark Public Library for the James Brown Room. And on behalf of Jeffrey Trezak, our director, and Board of Trustees, I welcome you to the Newark Public Library. As part of our Black History Month celebration, the library is pleased to present the exhibit Brick and Mortar, a multimedia exhibition featuring the works by Akintola Hanif, photojournalist and founder and editor of High Side magazine. You can view the exhibition outside in the gallery. We also have banners hanging outside. It's a lovely, lovely piece. The exhibition pays homage to the residents of Newark, New Jersey, and represents the foundation that Newark Renaissance was built upon. Hanif's work also highlights the value of documenting our present by preserving images which will serve as stories for future generations. Hanif encourages a culture of compassion and a review of how class and identity constructs fuel stereotypes and poverty about people of color. Our celebration continues next Saturday, February 10th, with a two-part program. The day begins at 12:30 with a tribute to the late Rodney Gilbert, who was an actor, director, teacher, and tireless promoter for a more creative community. We will screen the 2016 feature documentary A Way Out at 1 o'clock p.m. The tribute will also feature Newark's own poet, Mia X. The program continues with the Newark Public Library's third annual Black Lives Matter Newark panel discussion, which will examine systemic challenges our families and communities are facing today. For more information about all of our programs, we have flyers outside, and it'll give you more information about the panel discussion next week. During this afternoon's program, back in the day, Newark nightlife in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we will enjoy a fascinating panel discussion about Newark's cultural entertainment history. The panelists will reminisce and explore the history of Newark's heyday. I'm so pleased to welcome our moderator, Cece Rogers. Please join me in welcoming Cece.
The mic's on. Can you hear me? Good. So listen, we're going to dive right in. I don't want to introduce these great, talented individuals here by what you've already read. What I would like to do is to allow you to get in depth of what happened in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, what you did not read. And so what we did, we were just in the back having great conversations, reminiscing. With all of these guys here, I have a personal relationship in some type of sort of way coming in. I'm not originally from Newark, but for the last 35 years, I've called Newark my home. So what you haven't read, we're not going to go into what I've done as far as my work with Whitney or Luther or Aretha, nothing like that, because you can read that, and if you can't read it, you can Google me, as well as a lot of other people. I want to just say a little bit of what Newark had to do with me, just a little bit. Uh, Graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston, and I had two choices because I wanted to be in the music industry. So I decided I was going to give New York City a try, stay here for a couple of years, or go to California, because back at the time those were the only two places that you can go that you can get successful in the music business. So I went into New York. I literally stayed in Central Park for 2 weeks, parking my car different places, and found an apartment in Soho, stayed there. Rent was crazy, the noise, everything. It was just a big adaptation from a Midwest kid. And somebody said, "Why don't you give New Jersey a try?" New Jersey? And like most people, I'm like, New Jersey, that's far away. I don't want to be 2 hours away. Come to find out, I jumped straight off the Holland, and there was Newark. And just to make a long story short, I've been here for the last 30 years, and I was able to do a lot of things in Newark musically with the help of some of these people right here on the panel. And yeah, and that's pretty much about me that you probably won't read about. Uh, and let's talk about these people here. So just a little bit. Let me start to my left here. This is Angie. Give Angie a round of applause. Angie Ray. considered one of the disco queens, like you can read here. And we're gonna just talk a little bit more. But this guy right here, and I don't mind to call him like a father to me. That part in which I was telling you I got over here, this guy owned a couple of clubs in the Newark, East Orange area, and literally took care of me by booking me and sitting down, and not just with me, but a lot of young entertainers. He would have these talks, tell us, I'm talking about, it got personal. Like, don't have no baby now, and if you're gonna have a baby, take. I mean, just I didn't have a good relationship with my father, and this guy was one of those people. Give it up to that I did have a good relationship with. Reuben Johnson. Reuben Johnson. Here, we were just reminiscing because he doesn't realize that he met me when I was, like I said, considered a nobody, still a nobody. He was a skinny dude with all his hair, and he was innovating music before all of them. And I've always said this even now, whenever I'm overseas or wherever, you want to know if you talk about David Morales or you talk about David Guetta or all the big EDM, this guy was the first, innovating, right there with Larry the Band. Put your hands together for my friend Hippie Terralis. Also calling New Jersey her home for the last, I guess, 10, 15 years, but originally from Harlem, New York. Another one who, after the hit success of one of my records, would book me and many other R&B artists in all the clubs over the United States. Promoter. We're gonna find out just a lot of things about her. But please put your hands together for the very talented and beautiful Miss Julie Black. So, that being said, let me dive right in. I normally want to go ladies first, but I'm gonna start with Ruben. All right, we're gonna start with age over beauty.
That's okay.
Ruben, we was just talking back, and I hope that what we share with you, because I don't know how many young artists, promoters, DJs in the audience, or just people that just want to know the history of what was going on. Hopefully, this will be an opportunity so you can learn. Because my grandmother used to always say, "What's old becomes new. What's new becomes old." And when she used to first say that, I didn't understand that. I mean, because I used to go to her and say, "Listen, Grandma, this is new. This outfit is new." She said we was doing that back in the 20s. Oh, and then now I'm telling my son, who is 23, boy, what y'all talking about? Come with this high top fade. Man, we hit that in the 70s. So what old becomes new, what new becomes old, and whatever we can give you, because Ruben would tell you in a minute he's an old school, can help you in whatever you're doing now, whether it's your career in promoting or whatever. So my question is, Ruben had, this is what I definitely know, he owned several clubs. Okay, one of the clubs, have you ever heard of Bogies in East Orange?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one of the first places that I started playing. He also had a club that after one of my records came out called Cosmos. How many of y'all remember that? Okay. Come to find out, just 10 minutes ago, I used to play at a place also during the time that I used to play at Rubens called Mr. West. How many of y'all remember that place? Okay, y'all, we getting into it now. We're gonna have some good discussion, all right? So what's happening now, and I noticed this even with some of the clubs in New York, the competition is so crazy because you know they don't get along. They really don't. The club promoters, they're fighting for your audience, even, and you can see the fights from Facebook for social media. They don't do the nights correctly. So I was like, now that I'm older, I'm like, Ruben, how, if I played at your club, because you used to have a jazz night on Thursday, and the place be packed on Thursday, and we had to do jazz. Now, of course, you dealt with musicians, and musicians had to play jazz on one night. They had to play uh, R&B or salsa, and which again, this guy, this is going to be. I'm so happy to be part of this panel because this guy can play it all. Okay, I had to play it all. Now I don't know how well I did. I was just good enough to get by. So we played the jazz on a Thursday night. Mr. West wouldn't have jazz on Thursday night. He would have it on a Wednesday night. So I was just asking Ruben, how did that work? Ruben, why don't you tell us?
The West and I was very good friends. We didn't see a need to compete with each other. So we do it one night, we do it the next night. We both were successful in doing Newark used to be the Jazz Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
Everybody came to Newark for jazz. It was the Key Club, Front Room, all of those spots there. It's a jump jazz wise. Sparky J. Wes and I just struck up a relationship that lasted until he passed.
So what about the clubs that did not that you weren't friends with, like Dupes? I remember
But my partner, so people don't understand is Deuce was there, but my partner Bill Osborne was part of Deuce. So they had a relationship there, So it was never a thing where we didn't get along. Everybody got along back in those days. I don't know. I'm the oldest guy up here, and I've been around. Oh my God! I remember one night I was standing in front of Bogey, and I used to always sit there, and girls would come by, and young fellow come by and say, "Are you Mr. Rubin?" I said, "Yes." They said, "My mother said hello." And I said, "Oh, tell your mother." I said, "Who's your mother?" They'll tell me. I remember their mother and all that. And I was there one night, and this little girl came by. She might be like 23, 24 years old. "You Mr. Rubin?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "My grandmother said hello." So I knew it was about time for me to start hanging up the old nightclub business thing. But I go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s. So I've been around a long time. We didn't only do nightclubs, but if you can remember El Castillo, you all remember El Castillo? The castle up in East Orange, you know. And I had partners that I would have to mention their names because they played a significant role in these operations. And Bill Mann, we had the Rubens restaurant downtown on Court Street. Uh, Bill Osborne, him and Saladin, and I had, we originally started out with Bogey, was originally just ours, and then, they left and I stayed.
So let me ask you this. Let me
Guy
ask
Mike
let me
back up.
let me ask you this, Mr. Johnson. Is it the reason why there might be a success with in your time was that it was a smaller, more intimate audience as opposed to what's happening now? I don't know, and some of y'all might can help me. I don't know how many clubs that are in the Newark area that are striving, but I do know that the few clubs that are around, they're having a hard time competing. They're having a hard time having success in their clubs because they're competing for the same audience.
Well, when I came along, I don't mean no harm about what I'm saying, but blacks didn't go to the clubs in the white area. They had to stay within East Orange, Newark, and Orange area. And so therefore that market was there. People came from as far as South Jersey, all the way down to I don't know the town, way down, and they would come to Bogies. Yeah, I imagine some of the other clubs, Zanzibar, and all those spots. Uh, but it was not easy to go to those. Now, once they saw the money was being made and how much money black people spent on it, then they start opening those markets up.
Okay.
And when those markets opened up, that kind of killed off a lot of the clubs that didn't, hadn't been
Right.
around long.
Okay. So my question would be to Julie. Julie, who is, as I told y'all, everybody, Julie was a promoter that dealt directly with a lot of artists, R&B, house. You can look on the manual. Myself, which I wasn't mentioning her bio, but Jeff Red, all the big names, and her job was to go out and to recruit, to get jobs for them. She works for famous artists, and then they, not turn the mic up a little bit. Yeah, famous artist was one of the first. So my question for you, Julie, is into what Mr. Johnson just said. Uh, he mentioned something. He says blacks at that time was not able to, or was not, or they choose to just go into black clubs. How was that in promoting or finding artists for black?
Yeah, well, a lot of what I did was booking the artists. As Cece said, I worked for a company called Famous Artist Agency, which started out as Norby Walters and Associates, and we really booked a lot of the R&B, club, dance, uh, house music artists. And there were a lot of clubs to choose from back then. And booking them was really important in terms of proximity. You couldn't book, I couldn't book you at one club and then have you do, I could maybe book you two clubs in one night, but there had to be a certain number of miles in between, you know, because you had to be very careful about competition. You don't want to upset one promoter or one club owner from the next club owner. So proximity was really, really important. But each club had its own demographics, and you had some clubs that were very, very much more club music, some that were house. I mean, I booked everything from Sweet Sensation and the Cover Girls all up and down the Jersey Shore. 'Cause my territory was the Northeast, and then we did some overseas stuff. But yeah, the different black folks went to the clubs where they, you know, felt comfortable because everybody had a vibe. You know,
Were
I'm
you
sitting
were you
there-
able to book some black artists and white clubs in the Northeast area? At the time?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, we did that. Well, we're talking mostly about New Jersey here, but then when you think about New York, was very, very instrumental in the club scene back then. You had the Tunnel, you had the Paradise Garage, you had the Shelter, all those clubs that were really very important to these genres of music. And those, a lot of mostly black folks. You know, it's not
Right.
that others weren't going Latino or Caucasian, but a lot of black folks really spawned that music. But when we move ahead into the club music scene, that was a Chicago sound that came, and then we ended up with the Jersey sound.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna go
gonna
into
go there
that.
later.
We're gonna go into the
Alright,
music
we'll
thing.
go
That's
there
what I'm gonna have hippie for. But
Yeah.
before we move out of the promotion and the club thing, I would like to ask Angie a question because Angie came along as and I didn't get to answer this question, but Angie has made history supporting in the transgender community, and as many of you know, that now you know, the way it was now as the way it was in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s. You know, you can get hurt real bad coming out saying that I'm gay. Okay, so I wanted to ask you how Angie that scene when the gay community, those clubs, because a good example when I came to Zanzibar, it wasn't said, but there were certain nights where you kind of knew that this was a straight night, or there was a, you know, but it wasn't advertised. It's just that you knew. But it kind of changed a little bit around the 80s because I found myself hanging out at the Paradise Garage or Le Levant, and I'm sitting there, and it didn't matter. But how was that for you, being a transgender woman, watching that change, and dealing with the prejudice and the stereotypes at that time?
Well, around the late 70s, early 80s, things did start to change, and transgender women were more acceptable, but you had to be passport. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
So if you were passport, it was okay if you went to Zanzibar or any of the clubs in the,
Okay.
and you wouldn't really get any status.
You weren't getting what? Say again?
You wouldn't get any
Status.
status.
Oh, okay. Okay, static. Okay.
Well,
I thought you
CC,
said
it's very well accepted in all those clubs
Yeah.
right here in Jersey. Quite honestly, it was the norm. It was expected. Nobody felt any kind of way about hanging out with anybody in the club. It was a phenomenal blend of people because it's all about the music, the way people felt inside. It was they all came there for the same thing. You wanted to dance, you wanted to let loose, you just wanted to
Yeah.
let all your inhibitions go, and you
Right.
could do that at those clubs without anybody looking at you sideways.
Right.
No matter what
Right.
your
Right.
makeup was.
Right. Right.
There's a big happy family.
I think it also had a lot to do with whoever was the DJ at the time. And that's why I wanted to get into the discussion with Hippie. So, and I'm going to bring the discussion of what we were talking about with Hippie. I've been knowing Hippie since I was 22, 23 years old. Just a mutual friend who's always supported my music. We actually worked on a couple of projects together. But Hippie, like I said, was very instrumental in changing the sound. I mean, when I came from the Midwest and we played, first of all, disco was just like, what? You know, if anybody knows the history of the disco, a lot of the Midwestern people, you know, threw away our disco records and burnt them in Chicago. Y'all look at your history. So, you know, here me being considered a innovator of house music, the truth of the matter is that I didn't have any clue what I was going to do when it came down to house music. I was trying to do the jazz and Rubens Club and in the R&B. I wanted to be the next Luther Vandross. But I would meet hippies, and in the case of what you were saying, there was an emergence, a combination of all, not just gay and straight. We're talking about black, white, Latinos. Something that was happening in the '70s. It seems to be breaking away now because I'm sorry, I'm not going to bring it political, but it seems like there's some type of ignorance that's trying to separate us all when it took so many years for us to come together, and it started with music because if you know, music is a universal language. And what was happening is I was in Boston, and the blacks went to the black clubs, the whites went to the white clubs. Every now and then you see blacks and whites hanging out because jazz was just one of those innovators. But when it came down to dance and stuff, people kind of say, and this is Boston, one of the most liberal cities. I went to Boston thinking I was going to be safe. It wasn't until I got into the New York area that I said, wow. And I started going to these clubs. And it was not even about whether you were a white person or you were a gay person. It was almost about that music is banging. And it was changing, it had political messages. Hippie, please add on to what I'm talking about.
Well, the way I feel about it is the '70s really were a melting pot. I was very lucky when I used to live in Newark at that time. I started DJing at roller skating rink, French Brook. In fact, my partner brought disco to the roller skating rink. Butchie was there before I was. Nelson Butchie, Nieves from here. He was there a year before I was. Then I joined him in '73. And to me, what opened it up was the fact I had a cross section of race. There was no such thing as this is a black audience or a white audience or a Latin audience. It was all in one. So when you roller skate, it don't matter who you are, you're all going to enjoy it. So that was lucky to have opened to that. When that opened me up, it opened me up to any kind of music which I was playing. Then in the '70s, we had that everywhere. It wasn't just in the rink. It just started appearing in the clubs. Any club I played at was a real mix. And it also influenced our music. Because back then, when we played at that time, we didn't call it house, we didn't call it disco, we called it club music. That was it. You went to a club, you only heard club music. And that could have been rock, it could have been soul, it could have been funk, it could have been disco, it don't matter what it was. And for us, I think that made it something that everybody on every level can appreciate. We didn't distinguish it. It also opened up the fact that more people would come in because of that crossing of music, everybody could enjoy it. Now, in the '70s, when you were talking about the clubs, we were lucky. In the '70s, we actually had audiences for all the clubs because we had a bunch of clubs. We had Abe's, which I want to recognize Gerald T in the house. He was the first DJ at the Lincoln Motel. He's in the house. We had Shanique's. We had Sensations. We had Docs. I'm sorry, Docs. um, yeah. Yeah, Paradiso. But a lot of that stuff came more towards '79, '80. During the '70s, those were the clubs that were working here. Those were the clubs that were actually working. And everybody had an audience. Everybody had an audience. We had La Jocks. Al Murphy was doing his La Jocks and stuff. And it was amazing because even though everybody had an audience, we had nights, like certain nights, they would go like for Docs, they would come to our Thursday night, and they may go to Sensations on a Friday night.
Right.
Gerald had Saturday night at Abe's. So we had sort of like the same audiences, and they would come to all the clubs. But it also made our city unique. I believe Newark and Newark audiences are one of the most amazing audiences when it comes to dance music. You don't get it anywhere else. We really are united, and we really enjoy. When we go to clubs, we go to dance. Back then, we went to dance. We didn't go, now you go to a club, they want to drink and get picked up. Back then, I don't care who you were, you found your spot on the floor, and you went to dance. That was it. And that was a uniqueness to this area that is still here today.
There wasn't even always alcohol. You just went there and you just had a really, really great time. And I grew up in Brooklyn, and New York came in throng. It was just a hop skip to get on the PATH train and hop on the bus or whatever, get on the New Jersey Transit and come to Jersey because this is where it was. You had the clubs in Manhattan, but New Jersey had its own flavor. and you didn't want to miss it. If you weren't coming out to New Jersey, if you weren't coming to 88, if you weren't coming to Zans, if you weren't going to Club America, if you weren't going to those clubs, you were missing the whole scene.
And that's what happened. That's what formulated what we call now the Jersey sound that we so much love and talk. We're going to talk about that as we talk about artists like Adiva, Sybil, myself, Blaze,
Yeah,
all these
but-
people that would make history in the club because of the Jersey scene, because of the clubs, because of brothers like Mr. Johnson having venues from the performer. This is my question because even now, and I perform all over the world, and I don't go nowhere without a contract. All right, and I think I learned that not under Ruben's care because it was always a handshake. The thing is that the questions, and I'm glad that he's here and he's on the panel. How is that for a young artist, whether they're doing photography, movies, whatever, music, anything, to engage doing business? Because sometimes even a contract is not recognized. Many of you have done stuff. I'm gonna do a contract. They still didn't have to pay. You go to small claim court, you have to pay more for what the job was, and you still don't get it. So you still have to deal with a type of trust factor. And I'm not saying this because this man is sitting here. I'm saying it because it's the truth. Because truthfully, if he wasn't that way, I wouldn't even be talking about this. This man, from the time, and he'll tell you, he went back to even farther because I was fresh. I was fresh into the city. I didn't know how to get to Newark from East Orange. That's when he started hiring me and giving me a platform to work. I was working 2 weeks after I got here, and no matter whatever he negotiated, whatever him and Bill Osborne negotiated me to get paid. Pac, you remember this? I never had to worry about my money, even after I became famous. I remember Famous representing me, and Ruben called up and said, I want Cece to come down here such at the Cosmos. And I told Julia, this is how you guys can really learn a lot. I said, Julie, that's Ruben. That's daddy. I got to go. And it was not even a question. She said, well, you don't want to do content? That's Ruben.
Well,
Are these? Go ahead.
No, no. So, well, having a legitimate booking agent back at the time, such as myself, was very, very important because you did have a few club owners or promoters out there. Everybody's trying to get on the scene, and they just weren't very reliable. So, when you worked with a booking agent, there was always a contract. And then 50% of the guarantee or the cost that the artist was going to ultimately get paid had to be put up front before, like weeks before the actual show began. And then you confirm the show. They're like, cease, your show is confirmed. The signed contract is in, the deposit is in. It had to be cash, money order, certified check, something like that. That was pretty
Much the way it
guaranteed.
is now,
And
right.
even back then, they used to forge certified checks. I don't know how they did it, but the thing is that when they did,
They did. Yeah.
they found a way to forge certified checks. But the thing about working with an agent is that your money was still guaranteed. You'd get covered no matter what. And then you picked up the other 50% of your money in cash like an hour before you went on stage. And that didn't matter if you were a recording artist, if you were a DJ, or whoever it was. And then the agent took their little 10%. And then it was only a few booking agencies that were actually booking shows like that. Famous artists, myself, there's Erskine Isaac, John Aid, David Zedek, who did a lot of the overseas stuff, and then you had William Morris, and you had CAA that were booking. But Famous was known for really doing the most with the artists of your genre, the clubs, the Adivas, the C&C Music Factory, Clavillis and Cole, artists like Jocelyn Brown, Technotronica. I heard somebody say techno. We can't leave that out for sure, because all those different genres of music really played a big role in music as we move through. And you had to have contracts, because I get a phone call, some artists, anybody would say, Jules, I got to pay my rent. Can you get me a gig? And there were so many clubs to choose from. We could always find something. We could always find something.
Well, before we got to that, and and that's true because that happens now. In fact, with PayPal, there's always ways of you getting your money now. The thing is that what I'm trying to do right now is get to a point of that bond of that relationship that you build, because a lot of young people are coming in and especially artists, because we as artists, we're passionate about our work. Of course, we want to get paid, but corporate people, this time's got truth. They know if you're an artist, they can take advantage of you. Am I lying, y'all? Or
You're not lying.
because it's very hard. Now, listen, when I met Mr. Johnson, I was already a graduate. I took business. I knew that I could. First of all, I think if I walked up to Mr. Johnson and said, Mr. Johnson, I got a contract here, blah, 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 you probably looked at me and like, you take your butt on back over where you came from. Because it didn't really happen that way. Or maybe he did. I don't know. I really don't know because the way he'll tell you the story of how he incorporated with me. All I know is that what you saw was what you get. If he said this is what's going to happen and this is what I want happen, and then it was like difficult because I also there was a lot of yin yang because we had don't get it wrong, we had gangs, we had violence, maybe not to as bad as it was now where you have to have the checks, the radars and all that stuff. But yeah, there was guys back in the '80s walking into the club with guns, and be careful if you bump heads or whatever. My question to Mr. Johnson is how, with all the clubs he had, with the restaurants that he had, the buildings he had, how was he able to maintain and establish for so many years that because it was known in the street, Ruben gonna take it. Ruben say he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it. How did that happen, and how did it establish that? Go ahead. And you feel free to
You
tell
have,
me.
like there's a young man, Marcus, my partner at Boat.
Okay.
He's taking over bogies. I stay home. I can't stay up late at night. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. So I can't do the club thing no more. But one of the first disco clubs in Newark, these guys are too young to remember, was a place called the Crib Disco on South 11th Street. All right. Now, we opened that up in the 60s. And the way that happened is a guy who used to own the Cadillac Club, T. Hargrove, told me I saw something, man, you need to do. I said, what's that? He said, they got 2 turntables and they switch over and playing music all day, don't ever stop. And we said, well, we can do that. We got 2 turntables. Yeah.
Back in the '60s.
That old man. But anyway, we had a guy named Steak, and he could mix those records. I mean, he could mix them because you didn't have a crossover and all that stuff like they have today. Now they got everything computerized. But he was good at doing it. We had different types. Remember when they had the bump? Who all go back to the bump? The dance with the bump. People bumping into each other. That was a hell of a dance. But we didn't only do clubs. I did concerts, big concerts. I remember one time Bill Mans and I did a thing at Uttermost Field. We called it Parting on the Grass with the Grass. And all we had was playing disco music. People
But my question is, how did you establish the relationship with the individuals, with the artists, and people like myself and Hippie, and you brought them in? Because you're one of the few promoters that had a street cred of paying your bills, taking care of the business, and watching out for your artists.
But when I called you, came, right? Because I paid you.
Exactly.
That's the front. You pay people, you call, they come. When you don't pay them, they don't come.
Yeah, but
It's a very simple thing.
That's it right there.
I mean, even
but how many of us know? First of all, how many artists we have up here? How many artists? Raise your hand. How many artists up here? We got one. Okay, this is good. How many promoters we have, or business people that we? Okay, this is good. So how many DJs we got here? Oh, that's good. Okay, so my question would be, because club, we got a bad night. You never came to me with that. Sometimes I'm sitting up there playing. Normally at Bogies, we can get 100, 150 to pack up. That was a good night. But there was sometimes I was playing 8 people up there, and I still get paid. So how did, and now promoters come up, Cece, we had a bad night tonight. I take you back. I check. I never dealt with that.
well, then the next week when it didn't rain, ask you to come back. You can't. So I dealt with, as the young lady on the end was saying, I've dealt with William Morris agency, all of the big booking agencies, because we did the big concert. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Y'all might, some of y'all might have been at school, Steve. Earth, Wind, and Fire. We did Sly and the Family Stone, the Commodores, you name them, we played them. And you had to pay people. You know, you always got to pay people. I'm in the construction business. You pay. When you ask a guy to come and you got an emergency job, he comes because he knows you're going to pay him. That's in any business, whether it's music business, whether it's, regardless of what it might be. You know, you have to pay people. And so I learned a long time ago, if you pay a guy, pick the phone up and call, he's coming. Because you know he's going to get paid.
Regardless of a contract or whatever.
You got to pay. Okay. But going back to the disco thing, you know, looking back at guys that play a significant role, and I would not like to, wouldn't feel right by leaving the names out, such as Barry Washington with B Square. That's right. And you all know about B Square. You know, Harold Elwood with Dance Machine. These guys would go into different clubs, and Harold B Square did something every Thursday night. Every Thursday night, no, Friday night. First Friday. They did that bogus for about 15 years. You know, it started at the airport, the Hilton Hotel. So, and Harold Elwood with the Dance Machine. And you had other guys other DJs that did things at clubs and moved around. Hold your hand up on that. I'm talking about Gerald there. You know I'm talking about you. But he used to be a hell of a DJ back in the day. You know, but he still is today. But you have to pay people. When I did the concert, I mean, one time we did a concert down at Legion Field in Birmingham, Alabama. We brought out 40,000 people. But man, when that rain started coming, concert just rained out. We had to pay Sly the Family Stone. We had to pay the Commodores. We had a white group called Quicksilver Messenger. Louie the Blues, you know, the song called Story, and a Climax Blues Band. That was a big concert. But when the rain came, we lost. We lost our shirt off. But we paid everybody, you know. And so when you make a habit of paying people and not making excuses, and when you have something, you know, I remember we brought talking about rain outs. I remember we brought train get on board. The OJs played them at the skating rink. It rained us out there, you know. So you have those. And I remember we played Slave at Martin Stadium East Orange. You couldn't get around it there. We made a killing that thing. I mean, I can go back and tell you so many concerts that we had that we made a lot of money in. They one that we lost. You know, it's part of the business, the nature of the business. And even in the club business, you have good weeks, you have bad weeks. You have to have the heart to deal with the good and the bad.
Thank you.
One other issue about that I realized is when I used to go DJ, when he was talking about the parties and stuff, and I would go to a club and do a gig and maybe 8 people showed up, I felt bad taking the money. I would usually tell the club owner, you know what, I'll take your money, but like he said, next time you need the gig, call me, I'll do it for free. Because I just felt bad as an artist. You know, you go there and you expect everybody to turn up. Nobody turns up. You feel really bad about it.
I'm sure that still goes on a little bit now.
Right.
But let's move on a little bit to the music now. Let's move to music, and some of y'all can help us. There was so many clubs in New Jersey. Okay, let's talk with the big ones first. Zanzibar, Club America. There was Club 88. There was the Peppermint. Oh man, the food at the Peppermint.
Paradisio.
Just a minute.
Paradisio. Yeah, okay.
Cosmo.
There was dudes. There was. I'm getting there. We're gonna try to name them all. Don't worry. I'm just trying to get. You know. I can't debate with Mr. Johnson. I said Dukes. Let's go over. There was no, there was not Milo's. Where was it?
Shanique's.
There was Shanique. Y'all help me out. 'Cause
What?
Shanique's. You had Sensation,
Sensation.
which was new experience before it was
Which was
Sensation.
Kelly Willoughby's club. What was Kelly's club?
Compliment.
Say that again.
Who know about the highest peak? Who mentioned the highest peak? My God, you.
Oh boy, we know you.
Boy, my God, highest peak. Oh, she brought back a memory. My God, the highest peak. Let me tell you, El Castillo. Let me tell you about.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
don't beat me up, everybody.
Wait a minute.
I didn't get here to 84.
Please,
Okay.
let me say that. Yeah, you way behind time. The highest peak. One of the first disco clubs, way before Zanzibar, Club America, Paris, way before those joints. You had a thing called the highest peak. William Mann. My God, Bill, oh my God, I miss him. We was at his house, his apartment in Colonnades, and we were trying to think of a name of this new place we could open up. And so, back in those days, you hit a little hit of that reefer. So,
Back in the day, you hit a little bit of research.
it's still doing today, right? But we were going back and forth with these names, and we came up with the highest peak. We had a slogan called "Party like a freak, 7 days a week at the highest peak." And brother, we put that on the radio. We put it on the radio, and brother, WNJR, and they were lying round the block. They're coming to the highest peak. It's amazing because we didn't know that much about what this young man, genius in music. We had a house system, big. I brought out my house. I had the big old speakers, JBL,
Yes.
and State was up there
Before the Richard Mall.
Before, way before Richard Mall, all those guys. But that spot used to jump 7 days a week. The New York Times did a full-page article about the highest peak. People don't even know that. But that joint, my God, that brings back some memories. Had a guy there named Toby. You tell Toby, get on top of the bar, him and Dot, and they start doing the bump. So, bumping each other. They think you know the whole, they walk across the bar, bumping each other. But we had some nice, and then we'd leave there and go to Brooklyn to the skating rink. I couldn't skate, but I went. But we had some times, and it was good times. Men respected the girls. They didn't call them bitches then. They bought women drinks. They didn't snatch their pocketbooks and steal their cars from them. There wasn't no carjacking. You didn't have those kind of problems. And occasionally some white guys, and sometimes the white girls would be with other black girls, and they would come by. No one bothered them. They partied like everybody else. That was the good times. And they last for a long time, and then, things change.
I also want to mention a group that was doing a lot of stuff in the 70s that we forget, Mark Ford Disco. We used to do Ebony Manor with them and everything out. They used to do a lot of big parties for that time also.
All right. So what we're gonna do now, because y'all enlightening me now, make me feel like a young boy. Anyway, let's talk about the music. We were just talking a little bit about the Jersey sound and how that would forever now be influenced to all the musicians that are going around. And when we talk about that, we're going to also take some answers from you. You raise your hands, and we would love to take some answers from you. Questions, right? And we'll try to answer as many, questions as possible because I would like this to be an intimate environment in which everybody can participate and share some knowledge. Okay, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Angie, I want to talk to you some more. Let's talk about the music. The music. So, what do you know about house music? Go ahead, sweetheart. Yeah, turn it on. I got here in '84. I can't hear you, sweetheart.
Hold on. You came in '84, and
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
that year I was pregnant, working every day at Zanzibar,
Okay.
and I was out there every Friday and Saturday on that floor. And to this day, my son is 32 years old and he loves every genre of music.
Right.
Every genre. But getting back to what you were saying, Jersey Sound, New Jersey had a lot of artists. You had the Wells family. You had
Right. Yes.
you had rappers here. You had you had Melba Moore here. We had we had so many entertainers here. Y'all don't even realize that were born here in Newark. I know y'all know Good Times James Amos. He's from Newark. It is so many people from Newark that y'all don't. I mean, the millenniums don't know about. Y'all don't know all the famous people coming out of Newark. Um, I came up in the '70s with Amir Baraka. We had Black Unity organizations back in Newark, and he was a poet. He was a teacher who was our mayor's father. God rest his soul. I learned a lot from Amir Baraka. But Newark was very rich with a lot of entertainment that y'all don't, these kids can't even fathom. We used to have at least 5 movie houses downtown Newark. We had 5 theaters downtown Newark, from the Paramount. We had movie theaters. You didn't have to go up in the hills to go to a daggone movie because we had them here, you know. But with the new millennium and the music we had here, Jersey was like a forerunner.
It was.
We
Thank
were
you,
a
sweetheart.
forerunner.
Yep,
We were a forerunner here.
We got a question here, sir? Okay.
Speak into the mic so you can hear you, sir.
Oh, yeah.
George downtown.
Yeah. Garden State.
Yeah, you go back. When you mention these clubs that you guys are talking about, you can't compare none of them clubs to any club. Okay. I hear what you guys are saying, but that place that's leveled there and is no longer there. See, you got to mention Shelton Hayes and
My brother, you are not getting a debate from me on
yeah.
that. But like I said, this is like a father figure to
Oh,
me.
yeah, that
So
was
when
the
he says
beginning
something,
of it.
I just gotta. Y'all know. Next question.
Okay, thank
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm from the generation. I'm really from the generation of the rap in the '80s.
Okay.
But because my oldest brother, I think now is 66 years old, I am very familiar
good, my
with all
brother.
of the old time music
Okay.
and the bump and all that. The hustle. They used to do the hustle and everything in the house. So I'm very familiar with that. But I would like to. The question is, I think, is going to be addressed to you. But I would like to say
To you,
that
to Mr. Johnson here?
No, the young lady here.
Angie.
Oh, Angie. Yeah.
Right. I would like to say that when I entered Sensations, the Zans, Mirage, 88, the Mint, we call it the Mint, y'all call it the Peppermint.
Yeah.
The Mint. Well, I didn't see any separation between. I think you're saying transgender.
Yeah.
I didn't see any separation. Everybody was just, we was just.
I don't think she.
We were just partying.
Yeah.
So I would like to. I guess my question is. So my question is, what in your opinion made you feel that you were different from everyone else? Because we were just there to, to party.
No, I didn't say I felt different
Oh,
or I was
somebody
different.
did mention that. They said it was
No.
just somebody did.
But there was a difference in certain clubs and transgender women that visited these clubs. I went to all of them. I didn't care either way.
No,
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is I didn't see it. I didn't see any division. I didn't see any separation.
It really wasn't because everybody was out to have a good time.
Yeah.
Everybody was out to enjoy themselves, and
Have a good time.
that's it.
There was. Let me just tell you this. Let me say this. As a heterosexual male,
Yeah.
let me tell you what I didn't know. There were nights because you got to understand that most of the promoters and some of the promoters that booked me, and Mr. Johnson, were gay men. Okay.
Okay, so what?
And I worked very well, and I didn't have a prejudice, but I did know that a lot of the guys, they wanted to go where the girls was at.
Yeah, of
So
course.
if we went, if we knew there was a gay night, we kind of like avoided it. But it started changing. Now, see, listen, I got here in 84, 85. It started changing. If you knew that Hippie Morales was playing, or David Morales, or Tony Humphries was playing, you didn't care. It was like, okay. Now, it's funny because what you don't realize, you might not have noticed it, but first of all, what she was saying is that the transgender women, or the transgender, they were passable. You didn't,
You didn't
I
even
would,
know.
I would, at that time, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I have been in situations where I was in Rio de Janeiro and I'm looking and they saying, yo, that was a dude. I'm like, huh? All right. So it was going on even here. So that was
Yeah.
a difference. But there was a prejudice, and you can't deny that. Because I remember, I was like, my boys was like, that's gay night. No, we ain't going there. We got to go to the
Wait,
girls.
let me real quickly because I know other people want to speak. I also I was I should go to New York as well. The Palladium, the Limelight,
54.
Danceteria.
And you notice the clubs now. Not to cut you off. You notice now. Do they have clubs? They call it gay night. Not anymore.
No, that's what I'm saying. It was
Right.
it was automatically assumed.
Right.
It was automatically
Right,
assumed
right,
that
right.
the gay people would be there, so it was no big deal. Like we know the guy at the door was painted in gold.
Right. Angie.
I just wanted to let you know that at that time, Newark had the only open gay club. Okay? But no, Murphy's was the bar.
I've never heard of
The the dollhouse where I worked.
Yeah.
The dollhouse where I worked on William Street in Halsey above Sparky J's was the only openly gay club in Newark.
Okay.
Thank you, Angie.
Okay?
Next question here, sir.
I just wanted to acknowledge y'all and everything, you know, and especially Hippie. That's the guy that saved my life. DJ saved my life.
Yeah, here it is.
That's that guy. That's the guy. You know how rough it was in Newark. And to have clubs like we had, brother, that saved a lot of people. Okay? Gay, straight, or whatever, man, when that music started, everybody was in it. You know what I'm saying? In that
Thank you,
zone.
sir.
And that was the man that could put you in that zone. And I tell you,
Yes, he
when I
did.
first came to Docs,
Yep.
my brother slipped me in, you know. I was a little younger, but you know, I'm old now. But
Thank you,
anyway,
sir.
but anyway, brother, you did it every time, in and out, all the time that I was there. Man, you did it. You did that thing wherever you was at. And I'm gonna tell you something. Like that brother said, that Richard Long system, that was Zanzibar. Great. Never heard nothing like that till I went to New York, you know, to Paradise. Same type of system. But brother, I gotta say this too. When I first came to Zanzibar to see you, I was down in Ames. They used to party down there for a minute. Then you walk upstairs, you hear that system going upstairs. I couldn't wait to get upstairs. But when I was walking upstairs this particular time, you was playing Martin Circus. Martin Circus. I know y'all know what Martin Circus is.
Oh, boy.
I mean, hey, that's all I heard. You had no bass was on it, no bass whatsoever. You had the highs up, and I'm like, what is this? Brother, let me tell you, you turned me out that night.
Thank you very much.
That night. DJ
Angie.
saved my life. There you go.
Until we get. Go ahead.
I just want to say something about that also. Thank you for that. During that time also in the 70s here, there wasn't really, DJs weren't really being aggressively creative. You know, we had, almost all the DJs were the same. You know, basically they play music, they were mixed. But you had two styles back in the 70s. You had what was called mixing, which you would mix the two songs, or you had slip cue. I call it banging, basically. Basically, you just bang it right in. You don't wait. It's on beat to the next record, smack it in. That's it. But I created a style that I called the Jersey style back then, which was exactly what you're talking about. What I used to do is when I used to mix the records, I would take anything out, and I would just mix with the tweeters on. Nobody was doing that back then. With the tweet, or I'll just mix with just the bass. You know, and that became the Jersey style. That became the style that a lot of DJs that I was mentored to, like Naeem and Camacho and people like that, they carried it forward and brought that style to other areas. And that became its own style from Jersey. That was part of the Jersey history and part of the style at that time. Thank you.
So before I bring on, take some questions from Angie, because I want to ask her some questions. I want to let you know what's some secrets that's going on right now. As you know, when blues was taking effect, when people like Holland Jack Wolf and Muddy Waters and them was making history, they weren't making history. And what I mean by that is that they were never recognized in Mississippi. They weren't even recognized in Chicago. Okay, they would go on and make music for 20 and 30 years, and it wasn't until their music was touched by abroad by a small island called the UK that it would catch on, and artists like the Rolling Stones, many of them would go, "Wow, this is real music." That it would come back, and these musicians would be recognized. They would do movies. They would be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because that's something terrible that we as Americans tend to do. We are the greatest creators. And I'm not talking about just black people. I'm talking about this melting pot that has made us number one in everything that we do. This melting pot that we have a tendency to, to hate on. This thing of black and white and Latino, and we get together and we do great things. We make beautiful babies. And I'm not just talking about babies, I'm talking about music. I'm talking about we create culture. And yet there's something about you want to separate this? Yet all the facts show that this works. It works that other countries imitate. They
Emulate.
begin to emulate. Yeah, excuse my words. I'm getting excited and emotional. All right?
That's all right.
Because I see.
Emotional.
So what's going on right now? I've been, and it's funny because it's people from the UK and French. They have approached us. They've approached myself. They've approached Marshall Jefferson. Now they want to do a documentary. Well, if y'all don't know, a lot of the house artists now, Calvin Harris, Disclosure, we can go on, Avicii, people that y'all don't even know will get up and they recognize people like C.C. Rogers or whatever because they love the house music, okay? Adele, Sam Smith, you listen to their album, folks, that ain't nothing but house music. That ain't nothing but house music. Yes, you don't want to say it came from the black area because it just doesn't appeal to the masses. Well, this is the same thing that happened with blues because you don't have to debate with me. Rock and roll is nothing but blues. Argue if you want. Argue if you want. The facts are there. When Elvis Presley came along, what did he do? Name three of his big songs, and we can go back to the song to the artist that he duplicated, and he actually sung. He'll tell you. There was no like we want to hide this. Promoters or record companies want to do that because they want to sell records. So what's going on now is that there's this big talk. HBO is involved, and different people about bringing house music to the forefront everywhere. And these people on this panel are very, very strong. So my question to you is, Angie, what have you been doing? What's been going on? You was talking a little bit about the Dow House. I want you to elaborate on that. You had told me that when you came into that, you were actually just clean. So could you go on a little bit?
Well, I started working at the dollhouse as a teenager, and I worked my way up to being a performer.
So can I ask this question? As a teenager, was you already a transgender? When did you gone over?
I was starting to transition.
You were starting to transition at the time, right? Okay.
And like I said earlier, I went to everybody's club once I transitioned. It was like I didn't care.
Right.
But then that's part of being a teenager because we all at that age think we're invincible and that everything revolves around us. And like I said, it was the first openly gay disco, I'll put it that way, in Newark. Because we had Murphy's. And
How many of you have been to the Dow House that visit there back in the day? 'Cause, yeah.
one, oh, wow. One person still alive. But, yeah, I went to all the clubs. I partied up into the 90s. And I got married. But during the marriage, I became a part of Newark's history. I'm the first African American transgender woman in Newark, out of Newark, in the state of New Jersey, to own and publish her own magazine. And that kind of makes me a part of history. But the club scene from the 70s to the 90s were really fun times, you know.
Great, great. Give it up for Angie. You want to take a question from this brother right over here?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Jaja Shakur, professor here in Newark, New Jersey, musicologist. I didn't come out of this era. I came out of the next era that we stand on your shoulders, which is hip hop. I work with hip hop artists, KRS-One, Nas, M.O.P., Wu-Tang, Kid Capri, a whole bunch of other artists. My question to you guys on the panel is that, when you're dealing with music, especially African American music, there's a narrative that comes with that, political, economical, social conditions that come out of that. So in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, coming out of the civil rights movement, black arts movement, etc. So the question is that how do we preserve this rich culture? Because if we don't preserve it, if we don't write the story, someone else would say that someone else created your story, and you'll be written out of your history. So for me, I'm looking to work with you guys. Yeah, clap it up. I would like to work with you guys as a professor, as well as working at West Side, East Side, high schools here in North New Jersey. The reason why a lot of the kids don't know, because where are the books? Where are the audios? Where is the videos for that? So I would like to work with you on the panel to tell your story in these high schools, in these colleges, because we don't want the same thing that happened to rock and roll, that happened to disco, jazz, as well as hip hop. And we did check Eminem when they tried to say he was the king of hip hop, and we checked that real fast, because there is no king of hip hop. The people is the king of our music, and the people is here. We produce this. We produce those narratives, but we have to tell our story. So how could, myself, as well as this brother, myself, we have internet radio now where we can tell our story. How can we work with you guys so that your story won't get mistranslated 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now, like it has been done with rock and roll, jazz, R&B, etc. American music is death.
Someday we'll live as one family in perfect harmony. Someday when we all put together, we will all be free. To answer your question, my brother, how is it that in all that was happening in '87, that an unknown individual, even when house music was taking effect, oh, Black Betty, Bama, everything in the club was, that a social conscious song would come out of Jersey, because Cleveland, Ohio is my home. I was born and raised there. But Jersey is my home, all right? That you could come out with a song that will become one of the biggest songs in house music history. And this is not about me, because Marshall Jefferson wrote that song. I went kicking and screaming. Billy Press, who's supposed to be moderating, cussed me out, told me to go to Chicago and sing that song. I was like, man, I want to be the next Luther. I don't want to do this music, okay? This music was cool for the club, but it was underground. Nobody was playing that in no major radio. It was underground. It was what Hippie just said a few minutes ago. We were innovators. We were changing stuff. And sometimes the innovators, how many of y'all remember Willie Asbury? Mm-hmm. Just a shout out to him. We just buried him today. Jersey is known, even now. And I'm not telling you things that I'm saying because I'm just making things up. I'm telling you what I know and what people come back and tell me. I live in Italy a lot. So I have people come back to me, Jersey, when I come there, I want to visit. Oh, Cece, I'm so upset because I want to go see Zanzibar. These people, the guy said that. Sorry, Ruben. People have always, if Zanzibar was right now, it would be a tourist place right now. It would be a tourist place, along with Studio 54, along with the Garage. People would come here and they would visit because of the history it was making. How do we make a social impact? We keep doing what we're doing, my brother. We keep singing what we feel, not trying to follow or chase after what is the next hit. It's very hard for me, even now in this time, because as a producer, and I'm working with a lot of entertainers now, not just those, but even those new, and they're always chasing the sound. They're always chasing what is out there now. People are very scared to be innovators. What Mr. Johnson was saying right now, that whole turntable thing, it was happening here in Jersey, it was happening somewhere in Brooklyn, and people were laughing at it. People weren't taking it serious until it becomes a phenomenon. And then when it becomes a phenomenon, everybody's jumping on it. The sound, you're talking about hip hop. What is this trap R&B that everywhere I gotta go now, all my young kids, I have a son, 23 years old, who was nominated, we're getting Grammys and stuff like that. We gotta do the trap, we gotta do the trap, we gotta do the trap. And I gotta go in the studio and I'm doing like this, Lord Jesus, when is the next, we're working with SZA, we're working with different people, and nobody wants to break out and be innovators. But there's somebody that's gonna do it and they're gonna make history. That's the question. I was here, where's that? Right here? Okay, right here, my brother.
Good evening.
Whoa, did you want to say something?
I was getting ready to say something.
Okay, we'll let you go first.
He always plays second to me. My name is Ali Muhammad. I did the first concert in Zanzibar with the young man sitting out there.
Mr. Mike Barnes.
That's right, Chris Barnes.
You booked me with the
So
kids.
I'm going to qualify myself. I was the busiest promoter in the greater New York area in late 80s and the 90s. I thought you should have been Luther too, but Billy outruled me. I see all you people talking, but you see the real deal was white people owned everything except for the man up there acting like he's going to sleep. Reuben Johnson is the only entrepreneur I see in here. Only entrepreneur. See, everybody is raving about Zanzibar and all that. That was Miles' money. It made the Burger Empire. All those groups. Shanice, Ron Nelson. You want me to keep going? The only black man that was out here really doing it and was doing it before everybody, and before everybody was Reuben Johnson.
History is kept by doing just what we're doing here today.
For that memory, let me go back. What you all don't understand is it wasn't easy for us black folks. We didn't only have to deal with the white cops who came in and searched everybody and wanted to close the spot down. We had to deal with some of the black politicians who fought against us in every way they could to close us down. Cosmo was closed down by a black politician, all right? Paradisio was closed down by a black politician. So we talk about Zanzibar. I was in business 20 years before Miles came from New York. You understand? When they came in here, the copper was rolled out for them to make it. They didn't have to go through the change that we went through. You understand? With the cops running in and doing all kinds of things to black folks. There's some nasty history when you start talking about nightlife in Newark. You start talking about the white cops in Newark back in the 60s and the 70s and 80s. It's some nasty history. And there was no Miles that you all can hallelujah about. Nationally when Miles came over, his daddy was an extremely rich man. He could help him get where he was trying to go. But we had to take our little nickels and dimes and pool them together to try to put something together and hope that you all came to us, And I remember Bill and Tara and I, we did the bogus joint. I go back to the El Castillo house. Saladin and I put that together. Bill Mans and I built them all downtown, Script Mall. Why we didn't get all the tenants that Miles had? Why didn't we get them? Why didn't we get one tenant? You understand? So when we want to talk about nightlife, add in daylight too. You understand? It has not been easy in Newark. We had that young lady right there, president of the NAACP. Bill Osborne and I got together, and her, along with Inez, one of our great school teachers, and put together Prospectus magazine. Why couldn't we get any ads? from the city of Newark or from any other business, we couldn't get it. I can tell you more stories about more things that happened that we tried to do. I own a recording studio. Saw a young man trying to play music out of a little corner that he was in. And I asked him, what did it take to build a recording studio? His name is Joe Wilson. I asked the young man today, did he know Joe Wilson? He said, yeah, I know him. Joe ended up becoming a very big promoter. A producer. But I'm the one that put the money up to help Joe build his studio. He didn't put up a dime, I put all the money up. You understand? And so many other blacks that came out that I put the money up for. And this is not boasting, it's just saying channel some dollars back to those who come behind you. Like this young man here. And so many of Bill Man was a young man. He's much younger than me. When I put him under my wings, Saladin was a young man. Everybody, well, he talking about Jukebox Harry. That's back in the day when most of the clubs was owned by the Italians and the Jews. And they fronted for those people. I would never front. I was always a guy that had my own. And I thank God for that. Because one of the reasons is because I wasn't afraid to lock up with somebody else. I wasn't afraid to do business with another guy. It didn't make me any difference. And we talking about the gay people and all of that. Al Murphy, good friend of mine. Andrew Ellaby, Curtis Anderson. We didn't see them as no different. They partied and enjoyed themselves right along with us. So I don't know about all the differences and all of that, but that has been a hard road. A hard road. If I could sit here and talk all night long, I could tell you stories that'll bring tears in your eyes of some of the things that we had to go through. And when Sugar Hill Gang first came out, they played their first live appearance was played at Paradiso. You understand? And they was with Joe Robinson and his wife, Sylvia. So, and we did concerts, shows, and all of that. But it wasn't easy. It was not easy. So don't fool yourselves to believe it's good to talk about Miles, and I think Miles has accomplished a lot. But don't believe that black folks didn't help him. Don't believe that. The city rolled the carpet out for him, as well as Don Pepe. And the only ugly part about our nightlife is how much you all participating in it now. What do you all own downtown? What do you have downtown to go visit now that you can say, we play a role? You play no role. Newark has absolutely left you behind. Unfortunate for you, you are left behind. You can't get a matchbox in Newark. I'm lucky that I own real estate in downtown Newark, and they keep trying to buy it. I won't sell it. But I'm simply telling you that we have been left behind. We've been too busy fighting each other, arguing, talking about each other, and putting each other down, while other people build. Now they done build you out of downtown. Unfortunate, it's too late for you to get a toehold. It's just too late. And even now, we still fighting amongst ourselves. That has always been our problem. We are hallelujah about anything anyone else have. We think that's the greatest thing in the world. But when it comes to a black man establishment, you come in the door looking for something wrong. You come in the door talking about it. You come in the door putting it down. That's the way we are. Unfortunately, we got some white people around here in here now, and they know how we are. They understand they understand just how we are. And we have not yet learned how to work together, pull our resources together, and try to build some ourselves so we can brag about what we have rather than what somebody else has. I'll shut my big mouth up.
Well, Mr. Johnson, that's the way some people are, not all of us.
I wouldn't indict everyone, sweetheart.
No, I
definitely don't indict myself.
I just always have to make that point because it really upsets me when people broad brush us as a people.
So we have that problem. We have to face that reality. But then there are some of us who buy black, support black, and so on and so forth. But that's not what I came up here to say. I came up here to say that I agree 100% with what Brother Yahya, I'm sorry. I know you well, 50,000 years, right? Said about documenting our history, and that's exactly why I wanted to do this panel, because this history right here is about to disappear. And I know firsthand, I've seen it within the last year. I've seen how people are rewriting, and I've been involved in the arts and cultural scene in this city for a long time. And the history of this city and particularly the cultural history of this city is being rewritten right now. I worked on our current mayor's arts and cultural and tourism transition team, and I saw it happening right before my eyes, and I had to put people in check, because around that humongous table of the people that were making the cultural plan for his administration, none of them have been around as long as I have. And I had to tell people, yes, we've had jazz festivals in Newark. Yes, we have factored majorly in the arts and cultural history of this city. And no, I will not let you, who have just arrived in town the other day, rewrite history. So that's why this is happening and why it is being videotaped.
Thank you. But Ms. Bateman, you just didn't Ms. Bateman just verify everything that Mr. Johnson said? So he was just giving us a root of exactly what was going on, and he said something. They're rewriting history, and you just said
And
there are people want to rewrite. Yeah,
But I'm sorry, I have to take liberty since I produced this program, because I have a question. I actually have a question. And I mean, Angela and I were talking about it earlier, and I've discussed this with the staff as we were working to pull this together. What made it all change? In addition to what Mr. Johnson said, what made it all change? And this is my theory, and I'll throw it out there. It seems to me that the AIDS/HIV epidemic and the introduction of crack into this community and other communities like Newark, we're just a microcosm of what's happening nationally. It seemed to me that there was a extremely noticeable change in the nightlife of the city when those two particular things were introduced. And
let me ask Hippie first. Hippie, what
I think it's more, I'm not sure if it's just directly to what you just said, but I think it's more the youth. I think Newark is unique because when you come to Newark, if you're from out of Newark and you see somebody driving in their car and they're listening to house music or Afro music, you don't see that in any of this. You don't see that in New York. You don't see that in Philly. They're listening to hip hop or anything else. Only in Newark do you get a house music scene played by people actually driving down the street. You're parked and you're like, wait a minute, he listens to a good house there. You don't get that anywhere else. So Newark is very unique as a city. If I can go into a little history of Newark, would anybody mind?
No.
Okay. So you understand Newark was the birthplace, New Jersey and Newark were the birthplace of entertainment as we know it. Thomas Edison, when he first came to Newark. He worked out of Newark. When he made the phonograph in the 1890s, the first pop artist was an artist called George Johnson. He was an African American, okay? He sold over 50,000 records of the song he had at the time. And that was out of a record label here called the New Jersey Phonograph Company at 754 Broad Street. That's how far back we go with music and the history and what's going on with this city. So Newark is a unique city, as I say, all right? We don't know that, but it is. If you read your history about Newark, you will see it's an amazing city. It gives opportunities, I believe, opportunities that we can't really get anywhere else. But we have to take them. We have to be the creative ones to take advantage of that. And that's the only thing I tell anybody. You can come, you can start DJing, you can be a musician, you can be anything you want to. But you got to find that uniqueness that's going to make you stand out.
I think the question, I got you and I like that, but my thing is that there was a question asked, what made that, why was there a change And the change was talking about the fact that AIDS, the introduction of crack, which, let's just be honest, and let me just put my 2 cents in because I definitely noticed there was not a big support for the crack or the AIDS in like the government is doing for the opiate addiction. Right? And I don't understand that, but or maybe you do, and I don't know. But that was a question. But somewhere along the line, I'm going to ask, moving on to Julie,
No,
what you think?
no, you're absolutely right. You know, for the house music and everything kind of sort of changed, and even for artists like yourself, Europe just kind of embraced the Adivas of the world and the Jocelyn Browns and the Tana Gardners and all the clubs started disappearing, and I love all kinds of music. Please, I'm not saying anything bad about anything, but when some of the clubs started moving over from the clubhouse over, and then they started bringing in some of the hip hop, you know, the crowd changed, and then all of a sudden you're having fights and all these kinds of things. And sad to say, there's nothing wrong with that music, but sad to say, it created a whole different culture. And then the next thing you know, everybody's saying, oh, we got to get rid of this club and we got to get rid of that club because this is what's going on, and that's not a positive thing. So we had to really start to think about what we were going to do, how we were going to change the music. So what happened? A lot of the artists just started moving overseas. And, you know, not just the recording artists, but the DJs and everybody, just much more loved and respected and embraced overseas than they were here.
So let me give you my 2 cents because this is true, and then I'm going to take your question, okay? And it's kind of like coming into the line with what Ruben said, what Miss Bateman said, okay, about what happened and the change. And I'm going to let you guys understand this. Just a couple of years ago, Adele was in an interview, and they were asking her, being the fact that she grew up in the UK, who was some of her major influence. She mentioned Whitney Houston, who was from Jersey. She mentioned C.C. Rogers, who was from New Jersey. And she mentioned a few other artists. And then she happened to be in L.A., and it was like, C.C. Rogers? Who is C.C. Rogers? A lot of us, Sybil, Adiva, and Blaze, Kenny Bobian, all of us became iconic. I just got in here from Italy. I was in Spain. I was in Norway. I am constantly being booked overseas all the time for music I wrote 25, 30 years ago.
That's what I'm saying.
You can't find me in LA. You don't know me in Arkansas. You don't know me. Shoot, you don't even know, other than my family in Cleveland, you don't even know me there. And why is that? Well, just to answer what Julie said, there was a big change. The Europeans, just like I told y'all a few hours ago, not a few hours ago, a few minutes ago, about the embracement of blues. It's the same thing with house music. Blues was not embraced. It was not embraced until the Europeans here, until Elvis, until Coleman, until all these guys started, you know, emulating it, you know? It wasn't, and then when it's embraced, then it's okay, you guys are iconic. So that's just my two cents. I'm gonna take this question right here. Sir.
I'm sorry, let me
Okay,
interrupt.
sure.
We're gonna take this gentleman and Chris, you gonna talk? All right, we'll stop with Chris, okay, because we want to play a little bit of the music that we can talk about.
Oh, okay, okay,
Oh, okay.
Why are you up in here?
What were the distinguishing factors musically, as well as the personnel, you know, DJ and the singer, that made the Newark sound different from the Baltimore sound and the Chicago sound?
Hippie?
To me, I think,
If can
like I
answer
said,
that, I love you, but I want to let you go, Hippie.
I think us was our style. The fact that we played a little different. Like I said, for us, it was all club music. And I noticed one thing. New York was a little more aggressive. We were always much more soulful. I'm sorry. We were much more soulful here. We enjoyed vocals here. We loved anything with vocals. You know, we really got into it. And like I said, it was our style of playing was a little bit different in New York. New York was, like I said, a little more aggressive. We were a little more soulful.
We threw a lot of that gospel. We
Right,
kept it a lot.
exactly.
We kept it very, very spiritual. We did.
Yeah.
We did. If you thought about
base of
it,
it.
we took New Hope Baptist Church with us right into the house thing. Okay. So and if you think about what New York did, don't get me wrong, because if you remember when they started doing house, what was that? In Touch. My life without you, no, I can't get. I mean, they put a lot of the hip hop in it. They started throwing, it was that, okay, we're gonna go back disco, but we're gonna put a little bit of hip hop in it.
Right.
Right,
And you also had, if you go back to the house scene, you got to go back to Boy Jarvis, because for us here in Jersey, okay, for here in Jersey,
Absolutely.
him and Timmy were doing like these things like music and stuff like that. But we used to get it on tape, on reel to reels. And for us, those were the advanced copies back then.
Oh, okay.
The reel to reels. So we would play those off of reel, and they were. If you listen to house and you listen to that, they're the same thing. But it's just the fact that it wasn't labeled as house, but he did it in his house.
Okay.
And brought it to the club, and we played it. But like I said, it's that soulful side of Newark that distinguishes us from I think anywhere else. Not only just New York, anywhere else in the country. It really does.
And another
Thank
big
you.
part of just another big part of that too is when you mentioned CC, the gospel side of it. Right now, if you keep your ears open, just wait. There's a whole new resurgence of house music as gospel house. It's a big, huge thing right now. You've got new innovators coming up. You got this guy George Sykes, who's really just kind of doing some new things with Kenny Bobian and Susu and all these other artists now that it's really going to start to come out. And we haven't really lost it, because when you think about it in the summertime, there is no shortage of events to go through. CC can say, because he's come to my House of Black, I do a House at Summerfest every second Saturday in August. You've got Weekway Park, you've got Lincoln Park, you got all these people that come out, and they're like, I'm 55 years old, I might not look like it, but there's a lot of people who come out and really enjoy that factional moment. So, where's Celeste? It's not really dead. It's just that the people who really enjoyed it back then are just a little bit older right now, and we got to find a different way to keep it going. All right, so and we're going to do that. I'm part of that. CC's part of. We're all part of that. We're going to keep it going.
Okay. Yes, sir.
This is such a great, and I'm going to be short but strong, to see how art and culture moved into the institution and it's being documented. So I'm just going to share a timeline. So before there was crack, me coming up at 13, and this is what's important about outdoor festivals, when my first exposure to outdoor things was Mark IV Disco. Okay, when you used to get a button, and from there you got Gentlemen of Leisure, and then that exposed me to going to New York, and going to New York at a very early age, I was exposed to this whole notion of style and fashion. And there used to be a group of us that every week you could not wear the same outfits. No, because that was all part of the culture. When you went to 54, in order to get past the doorman, you couldn't look like next door. You couldn't look like last week. And I didn't know that that was about transformation of performing arts and culture. Then that exposed me to be able to, when you get in there, you're around millionaires, you're around international folks. So I had to learn how to speak different dialogues and understand about different dynamics of how art and culture shapes me. So thus, coming through the hip hop, coming through the trip hop, coming through drum and bass, coming through all that stuff, I know I wouldn't be who I am had it not been for the music. And I'm a Wednesday Zanzibar head.
Okay.
For those who remember,
All right.
this when the Renegades came out. This when all the local muck-ups, we all went down, and Docs was the Sundays.
Yes.
So if you didn't know, and we used to sneak in there, so you had
That's
to go
it.
to the Adam Theater, walk across the fire escape, you in there, and they know we didn't pay, but they're like, how did you get in here? And Omar and Malika and all that whole other stuff. So to know, in order to know that, I had to live that. You know what I mean? So Paradisios and the clubs in East Orange and Shanique's, that was my older generation.
Before I
But for
take
my
that picture-
generation, this is where we began to realize that I could be a fashion designer. I could be an artist. Then we start going to FIT. Then we start trying to make shoes and things of this nature. And so here we are now. Here I am now, like 45 years later. And yes, I'm 56. So I'll be there. 4 bus stops away from 60, and I love it because had it not been from the homegrown basement of listening to music that cultivated
Jerry Gant say that, you know what, the only rules, and I love what you say, the only rules I need to apply is my vision. And through that is where we are now. So when I go to the house circuit now, it kind of disheartened me because all I see is just people with just t-shirts on, with just slogans, and I'm like, where was the spirit? Where's the spirit that was behind it? Where is all of the visual culture? Where is the social dynamics? And I used to go to Sensations, and I remember when De La Soul was playing. Now you was down on that dance floor rocking, and this whole notion about misogyny and all those words wasn't even around then. So it's like just to say, just sharing the time.
My brother,
I probably booked that show, my brother.
you really want to see that atmosphere, what you just mentioned, about the way we dress, about the cute disco. Let me take you to a place in the South that you done performed in Italy called Naples. And you see it. They've taken the way they dress, the cues, the sound, the music.
When I went to England, I'm in Brixton, right? Cold Harbor Lane. And then as soon as they hear an American accent, they zeroed in because they thought it was fake. And then once they get in, they saw that was the real thing. Then I realized I became a cultural ambassador. And so, if you don't live here...
And you know what? This is not something right. And this is not something new. They've been doing this for the last 10, 15 years.
Exactly. And then when I start reading the magazines, and I'm going to say this, when I start reading Straight No Chaser, all those magazines, I started noticing that the faces this was before Ibiza and all those other places, when the representation was less about melanin, and then it became melanin.
Right,
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother, man.
I love talking, but I got to
Clothes and fashion world.
Sorry about that, man.
Big on it.
My brother, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Or afternoon, that should be. My name is Chris Barnes. Everybody in this room probably don't know who I am. Since it's Black History Month, I'm going to make you aware of who I am. First, I want to acknowledge my friend here, Mr. Johnson, the pioneer that made the way for me in Newark, New Jersey. Who made the way for myself in Newark, New Jersey by following him in the early 70s and the late 70s. And I came here today for a reason now that the gag order is off. We finally decided after 40 years to take the gag order off me to set the record straight. No investigation, no right to speak. There's a lot of people who have emphasized things about things that they know nothing about. A lot of things people have said that is very much not true. And it starts with Zanzibar. And the reason why I say it starts with Zanzibar is because I am the token nigger of the Burger Organization and has been for 40 years, 40 plus years. Most people that know who Chris Barnes is knows that a lot of those ideas was not by the people that got the credit for it. Mm-hmm. A lot of those things that people pretend to say and be are very much not true. In 1977, I walked through the doors of Age Disco. There was a man there who was removing some things by the name of Gerald. He was removing his things because he had worked at the Holiday Inn long before there was a Lincoln Motel. And he worked at that bar, I'm going to say, because it wasn't a disco. In 1978, it became the very much nice disco with 20 people there. 15 was friends and 5 paid to get in. That's because Gerald decided to stay and we decided to have a DJ. That same year, Papa Burger, they called him, which was Miles Burger's dad, decided that he can expand and spend a few of his dollars because his brother Bruce was really in charge of the Burger Organization at that time, not Miles Burger. So to set the record straight, I gave the first fashion show in the ballroom with CB and Company, in conjunction sponsored by Bamberger's first salon called Soul Sizzle. And we gave our first fashion show at the Zanzibar, well, it wasn't the Zanzibar, the Lincoln Motel in the ballroom, the Grand Ballroom, in 1978. That same year, we also gave our first pool party. Long before there was a Zanzibar. Abe's did. We went from 20 friends to 50 friends. We went from 50 friends to 100 friends. And Gerald started playing for 200 people every Friday and Saturday. And we thought we had really made it. Ain't that right, Chico? Ain't that right? Okay. So in 1979, just to keep the record straight today, I myself personally had one of the burgers here who happened to be Miles Burger, who convinced him after visiting Rubin nightclub and another club called Celtics 2001 that was also located right next door to one of his clubs in East Orange, and Dukes and Docs, and I convinced him to start the Zanzibar. And the name was not called Zanzibar at that time. It was called that they were going to expand a disco into the ballroom. But when he met a guy named Richard Long, after going to all these nightclubs, and we went also visit a place called Emerald City that was in Atlantic City, the old Latin casino. And we copied that. So I'm here today to also tell you all the lies and all the misdirect truth about Zanzibar. Because the gag order is no longer on me. Because my book come out anyway in May. And it's called A Belly Full of Lies. And a lot of people have been telling a lie. Hippie, thank you. You know, I haven't seen you in a long time. I also went on for the Burger organization that you also don't know, is that I started Club America. It was a bomb. It was a flop. And every success that the Burger ever had, except 88, which was done by Billy Preston and Bruce Burger, that had nothing to do with me and Miles. I also went on to start Sugar Ray's thereafter. And it all was in his bill. I was the token nigga for the Burger organization and the man behind many of the ideas that Miles had to consult with in this town, just like George Washington Carver and not the President George Washington. The big difference is that I used it to my advantage. I became the youngest promoter in 1980. I worked with Muhammad, Alif Muhammad. I worked with many of the artists. I also went on, and young lady, Miss Black, I remember you from Noby Waters booking agency. Noby Waters.
Yeah, well, that's what it was called at first.
When the son, Rich Water, worked with me to tour an artist that I made, and all of you probably don't even know this as well, called Heartbeat, Tana Gardner. I also was her manager and her producer.
My girl, she lives right here in Newark.
Yeah, she sung the big hit Heartbeat. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of conversation. I'm just going to say that no investigation, no right to speak. Get your facts straight, and we'll have a better understanding about what really went on in the nightlife.
Thank you, Brother Brown. So I miss you, Chris. We're going to move on because we're running out of time. Thank you, sir. Next question here, sir.
My name is Tayshawn Glover. I just wanted to first thank the panel for taking the time to share your experiences.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you to the incomparable Celeste Bates for producing this program for us all in the Newark Library. I wanted to acknowledge something that I think will play a very large role and possibly the most significant role in whether the narrative remains the same in these panel discussions and meetings and groups, or whether the narrative pivots to something better. And that is how actively and openly we work with up-and-coming generations. So I want to honor Mr. Johnson because I've witnessed it personally in a lot of different ways, ways that he's openly and proactively worked with younger generations and people who are doing different things than he was doing. First time I walked in the Bogies, I was not old enough to walk in the Bogies, but I was inside and I didn't leave. And that was because he opened up Bogies to spoken word, which was not popular at the time.
Yes, that's
and it goes on to be an HBO special, and it goes on to be, international and a big, big deal. But that was something that he did before it was cool to do it. And the fact that, with Marcus here tonight, it's physical representation that he's still doing it. That's a narrative. And I'm not saying that he does it and nobody else is doing it. I just know that I've witnessed it with Mr. Johnson. But I want to talk about or I would like the panel to talk about how actively, and it echoes Dr. Shakur's question, which I'm not sure was actually answered, which, he specifically asked about how he can connect with you guys. And I don't think that part of his question was answered. So his question indicates that we can't just keep doing what we've been doing because the connection is not being made. The question is, how can we connect? Thank you,
I'll
sir.
be happy to give him my number after we're done. We can just connect.
And I just want to also acknowledge there's Dr. Shakur, there's Kevin, there's Rosen, there's a young lady here, there's Travis. Like there's quite a few, Marcus.
Some great people here.
There's quite a few young people who are working to continue and build on the narrative and build on the work that the predecessors have done.
I can truly say with the
Cece, can I just say something before they end this? To Celeste, thank you for doing this program because, like Chris Barnes said, there have been many lies put out on social media that this one did this at Zanz and that one. I worked at Zanzibar for Mr. Berger for 10 years straight. I'm the only person that worked at Zanzibar straight through for 10 years. Tony Humphreys came through, T. Scott, Larry Patterson, Larry Levan. I worked with Chaka, Grace Jones, Sylvester, Patty LaBelle. I have worked with the biggest names. I worked with Norby Walters, but I worked with Carol Lewis.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of different, we partnered with Paradise, we partnered with the Garage and bringing acts from London. We brought Central Line, we brought acts over here, and in tune our acts, because I booked for Colonel Abrams, my dear friend who left us last year. But like I'm here to say, I thank Newark Library for putting this together, the panel, all of y'all, and we hope to do a farewell to Zanzibar. Zanzibar was located right down the street at 430 Broad, and it's a vacant lot which New Jersey Transit is going to build on. And we hope to do an open block party celebrating the years that Zanzibar was there, okay? We want to do that. We want the city to come out because it is Newark's history. We had one of the baddest clubs on the East Coast. I had a mailing list, people coming from North Carolina all the way up the East Coast to come to Zanzibar on a Friday night. So I know the acts that we had coming in and out, international R&B, and we made a name like Paradise Garage. So this lady,
Thank you, my sister.
Yeah, this lady here from the paper, she would like to say something.
Okay, hold.
No, I'm not Mr. Johnson's secretary, but I must say this publicly. I've been trying to reach him all weekend. For some reason, we could not connect. The young man over there said, how do we keep this going? I think we have to change the narrative and tell our story. I'm a recipient of the Disco Ages benefits from Mr. Johnson because he always gave me employment. I worked at Paradiso, El Castillo, Cosmos, Bogies. Whenever I was out of work in the fashion industry or whatever else I was doing, I can always call Ruben, and he had a job for me, and for that I shall be forever grateful. Now that I'm teaching in the Newark Public Schools, I wanted to tell you this, Ruben. One of my students called me the other day. He's now working on his master's, and he wanted to tell me, Ms. Parks, you have been an impact on my life out of all my teachers, and he's working now his second year on his master's. And he remembers the trips we used to take at Westside High School and the trip that when we went to Spain. It was this man here who always and still does support all of the educational activities that I do with my students here in Newark. So, young man, my answer to you, we can't wait for anyone, because when I asked the Newark Public School to allow me the chance to take my kids to Spain twice, they looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, well, okay, we'll sign the paper. We'll wait. How are you going to get the money? And Mr. Johnson always wrote the check. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much. And the children, thank
Ms.
you.
Bateman. Hold on, Ms. Bateman. I want to apologize because I don't think I've been a great moderator. What I want to say, what I want to say is that we never really got to answer this brother's question. And we all have a story, we all have history. I was hoping that as a moderator, we can engage and answer your question about how we can move forward. Because what we did back in the past is all great. Anybody, we can all sit here and talk about all the great stuff that we did 23 years. What are we doing now? What are we going to do for the future? And my brother, because, and I hate the fact that I am, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. I have 2 different pages. My other page, you can get to, in fact, that's what all the young people, all the promoters, people, they prefer to get in touch. So you can find me under CC Rogers, CCE Rogers, easy.
And we'll be here for a short time. If people want to interact with you all, I'm sure you'd be willing. But we want to play a little music and, sort of work our way to the end of this
Thank
program.
you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
everybody.
having us.
Sorry, I just want to recognize 2 people. First, I just want to recognize Chino, which was the light man to Zanzibar when we first opened. He was actually the light man. And I want to say, if anybody wants to come to the party tonight, I'll be at Club Elevation. That's it.
How you feel?